Hi everybody, it's me, Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and welcome to our weekly Q&A AMA. I'm here live. Yes, it's live. It is 31st of October 2023, and I'm here for up to an hour taking your questions live. You can ask your questions here in the chat room, just like Ana Lucia says hello in the chat room. You can also ask longer questions and more anonymous ones at the link from deltacx.com/links. And of course, as always, we want to start by thanking our paid Patreon members. We also have free members as well, and I'm grateful for all of you. Patreon is kind of where I'm focusing everything right now. A lot of my content, you get early previews of stuff. You get to vote on stuff. You get stuff. So whether you're free or paid, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/CXCC. And don't forget our upcoming events. We still have a few more before we close out for the holiday season. cxcc.to/events. Those are free events. The next paid event we have is my space workshop in February, which you can also find on the calendar and register. So we got a couple of questions ahead of time. Yes, that's my cursor on the screen, because you can use the links link at the top to send your questions in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I save them up for this show. So let's take a look at the first question that came in. Hello, Debbie. Do you have any thoughts on spontaneous applications for UX or CX positions? For example, imagine you find company Z, and after following their work for a while, you'd really like to work with or for them for any reason, culture fit or any other reason one may have. But there's no open position for UX or CX. Would you wait for an open position? Hi, Kelby. Or would you try a spontaneous application? Thank you. Remember, if you're joining us live, I want to hear what you would think. What's your advice to this question? So my advice here is, as someone who receives a lot of these spontaneous applications, I have to admit I don't love them. I don't have an open job. I'm not hiring. But yet I get emails, I get LinkedIn messages, I get LinkedIn connection requests that are telling me, I'm such a great fit for your company, you should hire me, I want to work there. There's nothing I can do about that if we have no open job. It's possible, but extremely unlikely that I'm going to go, oh my gosh, this person is so amazing, I have to hire them and figure out something they can work on. If I don't have an open job, I just might not have the need for someone, or I might not have the budget. There might be a hiring freeze. We might have just let some people go. And I'm not talking about my company, I'm talking about companies in general. So while you can spontaneously apply to a job that doesn't exist, you do run the risk of being a little weird, being one person in a bucket of many people that are doing the same thing. Also, I'm not saving these people anywhere. So all the people who think like, I'm going to send Debbie a message now, and when she has an open job, she'll think of me. I'm not. I'm just not. That's not how I do things. And so so the question is, what do you think you're accomplishing? Because you might not be accomplishing it, and you might, it could backfire from someone who says, why is this person who we don't even have an open job sending me this message about how great they're going to be for a job, and I don't want to write them back, and then they're going to complain that I ghosted them. Like, this gets a little awkward fast. So I think that my response to this would be, while you can do that, and while there are other people out there recommending strongly that you do that, find people, reach out to them, tell them how great you'd be for their company. I think if we want to have everybody say it with me, wrong button. I made my button smaller and I hit the wrong one. Any hashtag empathy for the people receiving that. Why, Maria Sylvia? Why are you sad to hear that? If we want to have empathy for the people receiving that, we have to imagine, are they getting 10 of these a day, 100 of these a day? Are they overwhelmed by these? Do they welcome this? Do they feel negatively about this? We don't know. So again, I think common advice out there is go and do this. And I can tell that's common advice because of the amount of emails and LinkedIn messages I get from people who say, I want to work there. You should hire me. I've gotten some much more awkward ones like, you have to hire me. I'm an immigrant. I'm going to lose my visa status. Like, oh my God, I think that's a very awkward email to send a stranger. So I think that it's something I don't think I've done very much of. Am I missing out? I don't know. So I think the advice would be, lots of people tell people it seems the only way to land a job is networking. I don't believe that. That's not true, because what is networking? Networking is not adding someone on LinkedIn. That's just collecting people. And that's not real networking. Real networking is you and I have spoken somewhere. We've connected with each other in a way where there's some sort of connection there. Ana Lucia, I've spoken to a bunch of times. I feel connected to her. We've networked. Kelby's name looks familiar, but I don't think we've spoken. Sorry if we have. Maria Silvia, your name doesn't look familiar to me. We might be strangers. I don't feel connected to you yet. So to me, networking is not just collecting people on LinkedIn or using LinkedIn to spam people or cold email people. That is very rarely going to get you a job. And again, you run the risk that you are looked at as someone who negatively interrupted someone's day to try to get something for yourself. So we have to ask ourselves, how are people getting jobs? Are they really getting them through networking? My question is, then why do we see some of our favorite people on LinkedIn saying, help me find a job, and their network can't seem to help them? So I don't think networking is everything. I didn't get my current job from networking. Some of my previous jobs I got because people said like, wow, we read your book, we want to talk to you. Or, hey, we saw some of your LinkedIn posts, we want to talk to you. That's still not networking. That's content marketing. Kelby says, only through comments on live streams, often chat with Joe Natoli. You may have seen me through his posts. Maybe. Yeah, I don't follow him on LinkedIn and I'm not connected to him on LinkedIn, so I don't see all the things he posts. But I know I've definitely seen your name before. I usually have a good memory for these things. But again, I don't know you at all. And so, when I think about, so let's be honest. If there's 3 of you and I have a possible open junior UX job, who's the person I'm going to think of? Ana Lucia. Why? Because I've had enough conversations with her to feel like I know her as a person. I feel like she would be honest. I feel like now we're just plugging Ana Lucia, so please hire her. I feel like she would be thorough, a critical thinker, good at what she does. She would look at things from multiple angles. Now, how do I know this? I'm not making this up. We've had some conversations. That's networking. Networking is where I've interacted with you enough to feel like if a job came up, I might think of you. But if we don't have that, or you've just added me on LinkedIn, then I still might not think of you. Because how many thousands of connections do I have on LinkedIn? But yet, if I had work, I'm not thinking of all those people. I'm thinking of the people with whom I feel like I've made a connection, and a positive connection, because sometimes these connections are negative. There's still time, says Kelby, right? Ana Lucia says, what about if the company has a job offer open for spontaneous applications or something on their job board saying send them an application, even if we're not a fit? Yeah, in that case, if the door is open, walk through. I've seen websites where they say, hey, even if we don't have a job that matches what you do, here's an email address. Send us information about you. Go ahead, do that. That's an open door, and that's a please do this. I think the question from our original person over here is, if they have no open job and it doesn't say that, is it still right to email the company or email an individual or track someone down on LinkedIn or whatever? No, Ana Lucia says, I am shy. Kelby says, I would only apply to open positions. I'm realistic that if I did spontaneously, my application would be hidden in inbox, buried in thousands of similar emails. Yeah, and I do take the time to write back to each person, but typically I have to say, I'm sorry, we're not hiring at this time. And sometimes people say, well, save my CV and think of me next time. And I say, no offense, but I'm not going to. Like, do you know what that folder would look like on my computer? I've been doing this for how many years, and I get contacted how many times? It's like the whole world. So, hi, Matthew Clark. So Yeah. So again, totally up to you. You make the call. You decide what your relationship is to that company or those people. If you feel like you really know someone and you want to lean on someone and say, "Hey, do you have anything open for me, or how can I learn when you have something open?" Then that's up to you. But if this is really, really cold and you don't know this person, you just like their company, it can sometimes be awkward. So, all right. I think we've talked that one enough. But, let me know if you have any follow-up questions. Everybody knows I'm happy to take follow-up questions or challenges or disagreements or whatever you've got. Let's paste in the next question, which came in ahead of time. Let me also check the email to see if we've got any questions. Remember, you can ask your questions here in the chat. It'll come up on the screen, so I'll know your name. You can also ask, other side, deltacx.com/links. That's our anonymous question asking. And of course, if you're a mid-level Patreon or higher, we've got a Discord channel called Q4AMA, where I will find your question and prioritize it. So here is our next question. I'm trying to understand how psychology aligns to UX. Too bad Dr. Nick's not here. That's certainly a specialty. Would you say when doing usability testing with users, the reason you can get a mix of bad and good results is because everyone has different mental models, and what might be intuitive for one person may not be intuitive for someone else? All right, super question. Thank you, anonymous person, for asking it. First of all, good and bad results imply that you had a horse in the race. We don't want to have a horse in the race when we are doing evaluative or usability testing. We want to make sure that we are just learning, that we are trying to see if our concept or design is going in the right direction. Is it logical and intuitive for people? Does it solve their problems? Does it create problems? Is it simple? Is it don't make me think? So results are not good or bad. Whenever there's a bad result, like, this failed, or, people didn't like this, I still see that as a good result, because the result is, thank the God of your choice that we learned this now, and that we didn't learn it later after engineers built it and we put it out there and it failed and it cost our company a lot of money. So I would rather know that early, and in that case, that is good. That is a good result. That is good data. So please don't treat it like it's a bad result or it's bad news. I'm dealing with this at my job right now. I've been testing what developers built, and I've been testing an idea that our designer had that is in a prototype. Ultimately, people thought what the developers built was okay, but they really loved what the designer built. Now I've got to go back to the dev team and say, we've got to go in this other direction. So that's a little bit of bad news, since people were hoping they were already going in the right direction. But considering we're not planning to release this to the public until at earliest August, since it's a huge kind of waterfall-y project, which it kind of needs to be, so don't pick on me for waterfall. We've got time to make it better. And so that's thing one. Thing two is turn on my fan. Thing three is, yes, this is why we want to test with multiple people, whether that's some sort of evaluative testing, usability testing, giving people a task in a prototype. You don't want to just show it to 2 people, 3 people, because if they all come out liking it or it works well for them, you might miss other people's experiences. Did you include people with who are neurodivergent? They may perceive this differently. Your prototype might not be set up to handle assistive technology like screen readers or foot switches, but you can at least bring in some people who are diverse demographically, who are diverse, hopefully psychographically, who have neurodivergence and other things that you can recruit for, and give it to a wave of people. And if it works for some but not for others, fix it. Fix it. And yes, people will have different mental models. They'll have different needs. Larry Marine teaches us, who's got the book, Emojis Up, who's got Larry's disruptive research book. Larry reminds us that people have different levels of knowledge. And so the difference might be people who got through it easier just were more savvy about this topic or this process. The people who didn't get through it very well were less savvy, but that doesn't mean we put tooltips and training and videos. It means we design it to be simpler. We design it so that you don't have to learn to be able to use it. So I would say, yes, I'm working on an article secretly. My paid Patreon members will get it first. I think the mid-level and higher get articles early. That's $5 a month, but I'm still writing the article, I think, or did I put it out to Patreon? Ana Lucia would know, where I am challenging the standard best practice of 5 people per whatever for evaluative research, and 8 to 12 for generative. I'm going to be challenging that. Now I'm trying to remember if I already gave that article to Patreon members or if I'm still writing it. I'm working on so many articles right now, I can't even remember. Let's see, Slack's product principles, sketchy publishing and workshop contracts. When will we know AI made a mistake? Yes, I did. I sent this to Patreon members about a week ago. So that means the public will get it in a week or more. Because usually after Patreon members have had something for 2 weeks, I take another fresh look at it, fix it up, and then I get it out to the public. So if you want early access to the articles, patreon.com/cxcc, optional. So yeah. Psychology aligns to UX in a zillion ways that I don't have time to go into, and Dr. Nick loves to talk about this one. But yes, that's why we want to test and work with multiple people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, ages, as makes sense for whoever's in our target audience. And then we want to see, where did this work well for them, no matter what they said. I don't care if they said they liked it. I don't care if they filled out a survey that said it was easy. We watch them, and we watch where this is not easy for them. It's very easy to watch people F stuff up and then fill out a survey saying it was easy. I go by what I observed and not by what the survey said. So go by what you observe and then use that opportunity to improve your design, and if you can, test it again. Because this is the QA of UX. We're trying to make sure we've got a quality solution that has a good design, that is a good execution, that solves problems, that doesn't create problems, that does more than just boost business numbers, but it really creates good customer outcomes. So yeah, don't forget that. So those are the 2 questions I got ahead of time. I don't have any other questions right now, which means we can wrap up the show extremely early, as we sometimes do as we get closer to the holiday season, or we can certainly take some questions. Oh, hi. Love you from Nigeria. Hello. Oh, I'm like a mother. Thank you very much. That is extremely sweet, Teslim. I should mention, though, of course, I'm a mother to these characters. These are my kids. The 5 dogs of the famous Instagram account of my 5 dogs. So very sweet of you. Thank you. I do hope to feel like a mentor to people, whether or not you've met me. Customer analytics. Okay, so let's put up this question. And you are just so sweet to say all the other things you said. I'm just going to put up the question since the other stuff is like too touching, you know? It's like, it's too sweet. So I want to learn everything about customer analytics. All right, boom. Let's put this question up and let's talk. I'm not going to get through everything, but let's talk a little bit about customer analytics, and let's talk about where else you can find out more. So first of all, I do recommend my Customers Know You Suck book. If you don't have it, you can buy it for as little as $1 American, which hopefully is an okay number even for people in Nigeria. If not, please contact me privately. But you can get it from my website at deltacx.media. That's where we're putting our books. So head on over to deltacx.media. You can get the PDF and the EPUB for as little as $1 American. All of Chapter 8 is about metrics and analytics. So can I get through all of that today? No, not really. Oh, another way to read my book for free is if you can stand listening to my voice for long periods of time, here on the YouTube channel, there is a playlist where I have the entire audiobook for free. You can just go straight into chapter 8. So look for a playlist on the CX-CC YouTube channel for Customers Know You Suck. Jump right in on chapter 8 and listen to me talk about metrics and analytics. So one of the most important things that I think we don't talk about enough in customer analytics is analytics from the customer's perspective. Very often we look at analytics of, did the customer do a thing that our company wanted? Did the customer sign up? Did they buy a thing? How much did they buy? How often did they buy? Your customer's not thinking about these things. Your customer is probably thinking more about, was that a good experience? How easy was that? Did I hit error messages? Did I mess this up? We've got a question from, oh, good. It sounds like everyone's reading Dr. Nick's post. So thank you, Matthew. We'll add your question to the end after this one. And did this come from Dr. Nick's post? Because I'm getting a bunch of messages about that. Here you go. And Kelby will add your question to the end. So ultimately, customer analytics, to wrap this up because we have more questions coming in, I would say my answer would be that we need to make sure that we are looking at numbers and information that represent both what the business cares about, which is usually things related to attracting people, satisfying them, keeping them, they come back, they use it more. Engagement is generally bullshit, but some sort of customer analytics, but combining that with what is meaningful to the customer. What looks like success to your customer? Maybe it's easily finding things in search results. Maybe it's how fast they were able to do something, not how many pages they saw. Sometimes that's the opposite of what they want. They want to see the fewest pages to just get this done. So remember, if your customer is task-oriented, as most are, you want to look for analytics that tell you the task was efficient and accurate. Thank you, Neelam. I'm a delight to listen to. Thank you. All right, let's go back to some other questions. Everyone is just too sweet today. Wow, what did I do? Okay, so we have a question that says, can you highlight a few of the major differences between user research and market research? I need to hear it from a fellow professional. Okay, while I answer this, I'm going to open up my slide on this. I think the best way to answer this is to pull up the slide I've done on this and let the slide speak to the slide. So hold on, let me get PowerPoint open and let me get ready to share my screen. And it's going to be a little bit funky. Hold on, where's that slide? Slide. CX research versus marketing research. Here we go. All right. And now let's share my screen. Where is it? Me plus screen 1. Sorry, I've got all these little ways I do things. Okay, here's how I share my screen. Let's take the question off the screen and let's take a look at the PowerPoint slide. So the way that I normally explain it is CX and UX research is typically behavioral, and it's typically a look at how are people doing things now? What are people's tasks, perspectives, habits, decision making, collaboration? How do people work together to do a thing? All the things Larry Marine talks about, tools, knowledge, workarounds, especially that knowledge. How do people do this now, and how can it be improved slightly or revolutionized completely? We are trying to discover opportunities to fulfill the unmet needs that we learn about and therefore create product market or service market fit. CX UX research is not about predicting or asking people what they might do in the future or what they might like in the future or what images do you associate with joy so that when we market our yogurt, you will associate joy with our yogurt. And we shoot for information and insights and suggestions that are actionable because they're based on who, what, where, when, why, and how. So that's what I would say is normally CX and UX research, whether it's generative, where it's early research to learn more about people, contexts, and systems, or it is evaluative research, where we are trying to see if something we're working on is a good match and going in the right direction. Not the same thing would be market research, or sometimes called marketing research. Now, I found this definition online, so I took a screenshot of it. It says, market research is the process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data about your target market, consumers, competitors, and the industry as a whole. So very often, market research researches the market. Who is the audience that we might possibly appeal to? Is there a larger audience than we thought? A smaller audience than we thought? Who are these people, usually from a sense of demographics, who are our competitors in this space, either a space we're currently in or one we plan to go into? We're trying to figure out if there might be demand for something we're thinking about doing or building, or a problem we're thinking about solving. We often look at demographics. Ooh, can we put people into buckets or segments by their age or gender, location, salary, car they drive, brands they like. And so you very often see those marketing style personas about, oh, well, this person's 21 and they buy this and whatever. Again, it focuses a lot sometimes on competition and pricing. Who else is out there? How do they position their company or product or service? What's their price? So that we know how to compete against that. Maybe we're competing on features. Maybe we're competing on price. Maybe we're competing in some other way. And this is all about our value proposition. Very often market research looks at, what can we sell people? Or we have this idea of a thing we want to sell. Who are the people who might buy it? And can we survey some people or find some people and throw them in a focus group and find out if people say they would buy this? Now, of course, very often we get a lot of yes, and then we're surprised later that people didn't buy it, they don't want it. But very often it's prove there's a market for the thing we want to build. So that's not all the differences, but that would be some of the things that I usually have on a slide to try to talk about the differences between CX and UX research with target audiences, whether they're current users or potential users or something else, and market research, where it's usually a lot more survey-based, sometimes focus group-based, where the intentions are usually different. Many companies try to get their UX researchers to do market research. They think that if we want to know something about users, we just should use market research techniques. If we want to know if people want to buy a thing, we should just send them a survey asking them about a thing. I got a terrible survey yesterday that really smelled like market research to me, where it was like, hey, here's a list of features, which is the most important and which is the least important. Very often a company might use this when they don't know in what priority they should do different things. But my thought is, this makes no sense. Do you really have no prioritization framework or matrix? Does your company really not understand its users well enough to know what it should work on in what order? And do you think that asking me to look at a long list of things and only pick the most important and the least important gives you the data that you need and the color around why I said that? And then on top of that, just because you said a feature to me, do you have any idea what I'm picturing in my mind? Like I'd said something like activity log. Activity log of what? The current activity log you have now? A future activity log that has other functionality? How am I supposed to rank that when I don't know what you're even offering me, when I just see something that says activity log? So this to me smells more market research, where we think if we just give people a list of things and ask them to rank it in its importance, we'll really know what to do. But to me, it leaves so many questions. Ana Lucia says, this is why personas are being poorly used and poorly made. Personas focused on UX and marketing are different, but people try to find information and end up misinformed. Yes. Matthew says, would you find this product useful? Yes, no, that's not UX. Yeah, I absolutely agree. There's a survey example in my book where I talk about bad research. I think that might be chapter 12, which of course is better to see than to hear because I have to describe the survey you're looking at for the audiobook. But there was a survey I got from Disney, and many of you know I'm a big fan of Disney's parks and hotels. And it was a list of 10 things, and they wanted me to rank all 10 in order. There was only one thing on that list that I cared about. The other 9 could jump in a lake. Not interested in Star Wars, not interested in princesses. So many things I was not interested in. I was only interested in one. But when I moved that one to the top, and I tried to say next, they said, no, you have to rank all 10. And my thought was, but that's not true. I can do it. You're telling me I have to do it. The survey won't move forward without me doing it. But you now have false data about how important things are to me when they're not. Something is going to be ranked number 2, and it's something that to me is a 0. So I know that surveys seem like fast and cheap ways to try to get information, but very often the information can range from flawed to totally inactionable to totally pushing us in the wrong direction because we've definitely made some mistakes. So be careful of that. But thank you for the question. It's a goodie. Let's grab the Kelby question. I think this was, and put it up on the screen. All right. What are my thoughts on in-person versus remote moderated usability testing? Okay, so it sounds like we're going to be doing usability testing. It's going to be moderated either way, and either we're doing this remotely, like where people share their screen, or we're doing it sitting with the person. We're on site. It's almost like a field study. Kelby, am I understanding that correctly? I know there's a little delay on YouTube. Let me know if that's what you meant. So let's start answering that. And just make sure I'm not missing any other questions. Yes, that's right. Okay. So ultimately, we have to match the type of research for what we're trying to learn and what the system or service or product is. If this is something digital, where it really just takes place on the person's computer and they can share their screen and there's nothing we're going to miss, you can do this remotely. I work on a lot of digital things. I do a lot of digital remote stuff, including the study we just did at my regular job. That was share your screen and let's give you some tasks in this thing. Could somebody have gone and sat down with these people? We could have. The question is, what else might we have learned that we wouldn't have seen through digital? This makes more sense to be on site and in person when, oh, okay, we've got a question from Ana Lucia that we'll add to the list. So the question is, what would we miss if we weren't on site with this person? For example, do we know that we have a very manual process where maybe people go over to a filing cabinet and they have to find some paperwork in a filing cabinet and bring that back and enter those numbers in? That's a time when it's great to be on site with people, because now there's things happening in this task that aren't digital, that aren't going to show up on the screen share. Did we learn that people tend to keep notes at their desk that they have to refer to? I will ask them to hold those notes up on if we're in a shared session, but if you were there, you would have seen that. So to me, the question is, do we need to be on site? To me, if that makes sense for what we're trying to learn. If this is not a digital experience, then absolutely yes. If this is one of those, we want to study people going through airport security, you're not going to do that in a Zoom call. You're going to go to an airport and you're going to watch that and maybe pull people aside and interview them and give them some money or something. So to me, whether we go to locations and do some sort of study, whether that's generative or evaluative or usability, It's really about what are we trying to learn, and are there things that we would need to see that aren't going to be covered by this camera or by me sharing my screen. If that's not going to cover it very well, then I would probably say get over there, but then you got to get over there with video cameras pointing in different directions to capture what the experience really looks like. I haven't done that much, so Larry knows more about that than I do, but that's the way that I see it. I tend to mostly work on digital stuff. That's where, like SaaS systems and e-commerce, where it's easy for someone to share their screen, and that's nearly everything that's going on. We did a study earlier this year where some people said, oh, I made an Excel spreadsheet for that. And we said, oh, share your screen and show that. Or someone said, oh, I made a Trello board for that. And we said, oh, great, share your screen and show that. And someone said, oh, I made a whiteboard for that, and it's hanging in my house. And we said, can you go over and show us that? And they did. Would any of these have been better if we had been there in person? Probably not. So that would be some of the criteria I would use for whether or not I need to be in person for a study. Let me know if that comes close to answering that, or if I missed something about it. Meanwhile, we'll put up Ana Lucia's question. Following Dr. Nick and Darren Hood's posts, I felt the need to read more about the evolution of user research and UX as a discipline or area. Do you have good recommendations on how to tackle this matter? Oh, Kelby says, same. We do mostly digital. What we find is when people are remote, they're using their own equipment. More genuine responses. Yes, you're totally right. Thank you, Kelby. Thank you for the YouTube. Okay, I'm losing words. Trying to over juggle. Yes, that's one mistake that I've seen some people make. They did the lab thing when I worked at Macy's many years ago. They would bring people in to, like a police interrogation kind of room with the two-way mirror where we're on the other side watching people, and they gave them our computer, our iPad, our whatever, and that's not realistic. That's not realistic to the person sitting on their couch looking at Macy's on their iPad. This was our iPad. So, yeah, labs are sterile in criminal minds. Yeah, so I think that people thought the labs were a good way to go. I think it's a little left over from academic research, which might do that. But I think when you think about ethnographic or anthropology or some of this other stuff, if you are going to research people, I always try to do it in their space, with their stuff, in their environment. I don't want to bring them into a lab. I don't love labs. Okay, back to Ana Lucia's question. How to tackle this matter. Ana Lucia, do you mean how to learn more about the evolution of user research in UX, or how to tackle the problems with where it's evolved to, or something else? I have to admit, I'm not sure what you're asking. Help. And I know we're delayed about 30 seconds, so I'll give you a moment to respond to that. And everybody, don't forget that we've got our free webinar series, cxcc.to/events. Our next one is going to be tomorrow. I'm going to be reading my article, Research Without a Hypothesis, and for products that don't exist yet, and we're going to turn it into a discussion. So come with your questions about doing research without a hypothesis and products that don't exist. This will be in Google Meet and not live on YouTube or LinkedIn, so you'll want to jump over to cxcc.to/events and RSVP or grab that Google Meet link. Ana Lucia, what did you mean by this question? I'm not sure how to answer it. Here she is. Okay, Ana Lucia says, I think I need to know more about the history of the areas and how they evolved. It seems there's a lot of influences over the years that were not good, and I'd like to be able to understand it. Yeah, and I think we're all going to have a slightly different perspective on this because it's based on some of our lived experiences. Dr. Nick's roughly my age, but we were in different countries. Darren is older than I am, so he has different experience dating back before mine. Larry Marine's experience is going to date back before almost everybody's. He's going to have a different experience, but I know that when I started doing this stuff more formally, I think it was a little bit more understood. When people brought me in, then I was more of a designer. I was doing some research, but it wasn't my key thing. So when I first started, I was really an interaction designer and information architect. I was doing prototyping, sometimes some testing, but I wasn't doing visual design. That was someone else's job. So first of all, the jobs were really clear cut. And I'm talking about 2008 to 2014, 15-ish. The jobs were really clear cut. If you were really that UX specialist, you were probably a researcher. You were probably an architect, as we were sometimes called, or sometimes designer. I got plenty of jobs without anybody expecting me to also do the research or also do the visual design or the brand or the style guide. That was always someone else's job. Writing was someone else's job. Coding was someone else's job. So I think that if we roll back, even 10 or so years ago, we have not always, but many well-defined UX jobs based on what people's different specialty areas were. And then what happened, in my opinion, in especially the mid-2010s, 2015, 16, I'm getting an anonymous question. We'll add you next. What happened was, and I was just telling Karen about this morning, was that there was a real appetite for UX. The bigger companies understood the importance of it. They understood human factors and psychology and designing things for people. And also, we weren't as agile at the time. I explain this in my book. We were more waterfall. Sometimes a project didn't come out for a year or more. You didn't want to run the risk that when your stuff finally came out that it sucked for the user. So you wanted to use UX techniques and human-centered design and user-centered design to be testing and iterating along the way so that by the time we put this thing out, it wasn't a giant disaster money pit for the company. So we had lots of good reasons to want to make sure that we had a good UX process and that it was done by people who knew what they were doing. There were junior jobs, there were internships, and there were ways to get in. But in the mid-2010s, 2015, 2016, even startups at the time were being told, developers are a dime a dozen. You need a great UX person who's going to design a great system for you and help you find product market fit that much faster. Developers are easy to find from anywhere. They're nothing special, no offense. So we had a huge surge in at least what I experienced as an understanding of UX and people wanting it done right. I was brought into companies and often told, we need your expertise. We need your skills. We need your ability to fix a problem. And I heard that a lot from the 2000s into the mid-2010s. And so we really got to do the things that we all talk about now that we can't do. And then what happened was boot camps jumped up. Boot camp said, oh, wow, there's more jobs than people. Companies are scraping and scraping to find people to put into these UX jobs. These people don't exist. Maybe we can upskill them really fast. Maybe there's some sort of 2 or 3 month course that we can give people where they can go into these jobs and they'll just be, they'll be good. And there will be a senior there who will help them be better and we'll get there. And so you had the first wave of boot camps, which was mostly General Assembly in America. It was pretty decent at the time. After that, not good. Do not recommend. But it was, it was General Assembly was okay. But then we also had problems around that time where a lot of graphic designers and visual designers were being told, if you want to make more money, just tell people you're a UX designer. And you'll get amazing new jobs, and you can do the same work you've been doing anyway, and just say you're doing UX. Okay, so now all of a sudden we have this influx of people who don't have the backgrounds and training a lot of us had, and many people had way more training than I did, because I was all self-taught. And so you had all these people who were just saying they were UX designers, but they were really just doing visual design. And then you had people right out of boot camps who were being taught minimum viable UX. And then from there, it kind of just exploded. So I would say that's some of the evolution. That's why the early days really drew a lot of us in, because I could be brought into a company and I could be told, we need you to solve this problem. We want you to take whatever time it takes. We assume it's weeks, not months or years, but like we assume you need weeks to make this right and make it good. Go do it. And so that's, we don't really hear that anymore. It's not the same world. So I think that's all I would say for now about evolution. Was that some of what you were talking about there? Let's see. Okay, let's have the anonymous question. Let me paste that in. And then we'll get to Joel's question. Anonymous question. Okay. Hello, Debbie. Let's tighten this up. Okay. There we go. Hello, Debbie. Firstly, thank you for all of your content. Hey, you're welcome. It's such a brilliant source of up-to-date information. Yes, thank you. I've decided my new brand is going to be, I'm the secret weapon for the few of you who are interested in my content. I'm not sure if you give career advice. I usually do. But it would be amazing if you could share some ideas on what skills, hard or soft, you think would help a senior designer stand out in an extremely competitive job market. Thanks. All the best. Oh, yes. All the best back at you. It is an ugly market out there. Mostly, I think my advice is usually look at some jobs that you think you would like, that you think you qualify for, and see what they're asking for. Because I can give you the usual list of good skills to have. And as a senior, you might already have them, like being able to give a good presentation, being able to explain or defend your work, being able to mentor a junior, being able to think critically and ask some tough questions. But I don't know how to make you stand out. To me, the people who stand out are the people who know what they're doing and have a portfolio that tell the story of someone who knows what they're doing and do it well at a senior level. I see lots of portfolios from people who I think don't know what they're doing. And so to me, the people who stand out are the people who have a good portfolio that tells a not confusing story of how and why you did stuff that allow me to look at it and go, aha, this person really knows their stuff. Too often I see portfolios that don't fit that. I think that was episode 148 back on the Delta CX YouTube channel. This is the other YouTube channel. You can just find it on YouTube, Delta CX 148 or Delta CX portfolios. That would be a good way to go. How do you stand out? It's hard right now. So many people have been laid off. They're all very qualified. How do you stand out in a world of unqualified people? Be the qualified person. How do you stand out in a world of well-qualified people? That's hard. So typically my approach is I only apply for jobs that I think I'm a really amazing fit for. I don't just apply for everything and spray and pray, as they say. I think for many people that's a little bit too upsetting or depressing to have put that many applications out and get ghosted or not interviewed. So yeah, it's hard. I am not sure how to stand out in a world of great people. In a world of not great people, it was much easier. You know, when the boot camps first started, as I was just talking about, it was much easier to stand out. Sure, you can get a newbie who's cheaper than I am, But here's the value of my expertise, experience, skill, talent, technique. Sure, that part's the easy part. How do you stand out when everybody else is as qualified as you are? I'm not sure I have a good answer for that, because I'm just looking at the people who are qualified, and then I'll want to interview them to see if they really do know their stuff and if they seem like someone I'd like to work with. So it's a little bit of the skill and talent and experience and maybe rigor, and then it becomes a personality interview. That, you know, there's lots of people I don't want to work with, lots of personality types I don't want to work with. That's me personally. So that's what I'm looking for. Let's see. Joel had a question. Let's put that up. Have you done research to validate an idea or product and found that it's not going to work? What does that conversation look like, and would you stop development? And Kelby said, we've done research for a big iGaming producer. They tested a new game style with a slot game. Through feedback from typical players, they had the insights to show the idea was bad. The players didn't understand the concept and would have played elsewhere. By not pursuing past a prototype, the company saved so much in development costs that would have been wasted. Yeah, it's a great story from Kelby, and thank you for sharing it. Yes, I have definitely had that conversation, and in some ways I have to have a similar conversation at my job now, where I found that what the developers started building was okay, but not really right for our target audiences in many ways, and that there's an alternative idea that our designer is working on that isn't perfect, but is much closer to what people needed, and that I'm going to be recommending a different design based on the best of each, even though the other design had a lot more good going for it. So, yes, I think that if you want to be strategic, if you want to be someone who gives actionable insights and suggestions, if you want to be a critical thinker, then you are telling the company that. Do not sugarcoat it and make it seem like, well, you know, it seems like it's not going to be the best, but with a few changes, it's probably fine. I've seen some researchers try to do that because they wanted to look like the hero, and they wanted to make it look like maybe with a few changes, this is going to work out. But very often their data showed it's not going to work out. This is really just the wrong thing or going in the wrong direction. And I will have that conversation. But to me, you have to make sure you are approaching it with diplomacy. So you can't be like, your idea stinks. It's more about, you know, now that we've tested this idea, or now that we've researched the audience to find what they need, or whatever, however you came at it, we found out that this current direction is unlikely to be the right direction for these reasons. So notice there's no you in it. It's not about the person, etc. So I think that it just is about having that that tough conversation. And should development stop? Yes, I have asked people to stop development. I'm not going to do it at this job because they're going slowly, and even though we need some interface changes, the back end stuff is great. It's really just some interface changes, so I'm not stopping development where I am now. But depending upon where you are, and at other places I've been, I have recommended that development pause. The problem is that someone will usually then say, well, what are our developers going to work on if we stop development? There's always something for developers to work on. There's always something in the backlog. There's always a customer complaint that could be fixed. There's always a performance issue, like making something faster. There's always something developers can work on, and companies shouldn't act like there's nothing for us to do here if we don't work on this right now. There's usually something else to work on. Joel, I hope that helps. Chantel says, I have the somewhat opposite problem. Customers want it, but I don't think we have the infrastructure. Again, tough conversations. We still have to have these conversations. And, you know, if customers want it and something works for them, will we build what's needed to be built? I don't know. And our last question for today, because I'm almost out of time and my job starts for the day in about 5 minutes. This is from Rudy. Hello, Rudy. How do you overcome obstacles and hurdles where the team cannot control its own destiny? How do you overcome growth for UX and designers when their performance is evaluated by non-practitioners? How do you overcome toxic positivity and lack of accountability by others when they constantly fail to deliver? Product unwilling to provide access to customers for research or do any meaningful prioritization, or engineering cannot deliver or implement with tremendous debt before the org can even strategically address UX. Okay, clearly this is not a question I can answer in the next 4 minutes. However, this can. A lot of what you've written about is covered in my book, Customers Know You Suck. I don't know if you've read it, started it, taken a look at it. Check it out. You can find it at cxcc.to/CKYS, all lowercase. So I can't answer all of those in 4 minutes. I can only say that they are problems that feed each other, and it starts with no accountability. If we have no accountability, then it doesn't matter if we don't deliver very well. It doesn't matter if we have failures. It doesn't matter if product is blocking you from doing good work. As long as we don't have accountability, there's no reason for anybody to do better or be better. Another problem is probably that your company isn't even following its own company values, if you have them, and if they're not fluffy. So some conversations I'm having with companies are, where's our company values here? We're supposed to be honest, transparent, empathy. I didn't have my effect ready. Who's with me? Empathy. We're supposed to put customers first. We made all these promises with our company values. We're not doing any of this. This is when you're supposed to have better leadership. But again, if you're in UX and you don't have UX leadership, that's not an accident. They want your department to be small and powerless. Otherwise, they would give you at least a manager who would have your back. So ultimately, this doesn't sound like a place where you're going to continue to work. This sounds like a place where you're going to leave. And in my opinion, how can you overcome this? You can't. This is a giant pile of garbage that only someone in a change or leadership position can change. However, when I leave places like this, I go have a 2-hour exit interview with the HR people, and I tell them all of this. And I say, because the problem isn't me. I can leave. I'm gone. But you might replace me, and that person's going to experience all of this. That person's going to experience toxic people, no accountability, product managers setting me up to fail, teams that don't even deliver, teams that deliver failures and act like that it's fine to waste the company's money and keep failing, teams that don't even know how to evaluate my work and only look at deadlines and not the quality of my work. Usually if I can't get a leader to listen to me, maybe you just have all toxic leadership. If I can't get a leader to listen to me, then I'm aggressively applying. I'm trying to get out of there, and I will tell HR everything. Even if they don't want to know, even if they say, we don't want to meet with you, we don't want to have an exit interview, I give them a 9-page typed letter. I've done that before. And I say, fine, you don't have to listen to me. Here's a 9-page typed letter. Read it if you want. Don't read it if you want. But I'm going to tell you why this is going to be a problem for you. And replacing me is going to be difficult for you. You're not going to be able to keep anybody in this job. I have left jobs where I have told them, do not replace me. You clearly don't want UX. You just don't. Don't replace me. Your product manager just wants to do whatever they want to do with nobody getting in their way. Let them. If that's what you want at this company, let them. But then don't bring in someone like me who's going to be a critical thinker and want us to not fail and want there to be accountability. I'm a mismatch for this job. You probably just want to bring in a visual designer who's an order taker, who doesn't want to make change, who doesn't care about quality of stuff, who is rewarded at jobs where they can do what people ask them to do and do that well. There are those personalities out there. That's who you need. Do yourself a favor and make sure very specifically that you don't hire a critical thinker, that you don't hire a problem finder and problem solver. You don't want that. That person's not going to stay. You need an order taker. All right, I got to go to work. Thanks to everybody for hanging out. I have done my best to answer your questions. I'm usually here every Tuesday. I hope people will join my Patreon. You can join it for free, or it's as little as $1 a month to get the paid perks. You can also subscribe here to our YouTube channel, CX-CC. And of course, join our live events that are not on YouTube or on LinkedIn, cxcc.to/events. We've got a free webinar coming up tomorrow and a few more over the next couple of weeks before we break for the holidays. Thank you to Kelby. Great advice and shared experience as always. Thank you. So I am going to quietly play us out of here. The end of show is just a giant blast of fire, and then the stream will stop. But thank you again, and I hope I'll see everybody tomorrow to talk about how do we do research when we don't have a hypothesis or a product yet. It's a question I get a lot, especially from startups, and it's one we'll be talking about tomorrow. That will be recorded on Google Meet. It'll go straight to the paid Patreon members, and then 2 weeks later, it'll go to everybody else. Thank you. Everybody have a super Tuesday, and I'll catch you soon. Bye.